We are 1 week in front of Thanksgiving, about a month and a week in front of Christmas. We have a Bitcoin market that is absolutely exploded, nearly $1.9 trillion in market cap for Bitcoin alone. And I have Calvin Cooper, who is a venture capitalist, seasoned venture capitalist, been around the block. I like these guys that have been around a long time. His focus is on fintech, prop tech. He's going to tell you what prop tech is because I'm not sure I fully understand that. Manufacturing and blockchain technologies. He's a young guy, founder and CEO, former CEO of Rove, a real estate fintech company, democratizing access to real estate investing. We're going to chat about that because you guys know what my brother and I are trying to do on some multi-dwelling. He's had successful exits and a direct listing on NASDAQ. Cooper, good to have you here, buddy. I know we had some technical issues, but really good to have you and love an update. Maybe you give your presentation to the audience of who you are, where you come from, kind of what your perspective is, and what your secret sauce is, Cooper.
Secret sauce, man. I'm just curious. That's the secret sauce. And
that's a big
work
one.
hard, right? That's it. And try to keep my life right side up. You know, you got to lean into your core. I'm a stoic libertarian and I like to meditate every day. So that's the secret sauce. But thank you so much for having me today, Gary. It's truly a pleasure. I've always admired your work throughout the years and the message that you're giving to the audience. So it's a pleasure to be here today. About my background, I've spent about 15 years in the entrepreneurial ecosystem. First as a VC, I helped raise the fund NCT Ventures in the Midwest. We invested across several thematic areas. Ultimately, I quit and founded Rove really to give people access to owning real estate without having to take a mortgage out and buying their home. I've heard you talk a lot about that, and I'm a big believer. That's that insight around home ownership not being the best path was really what led me to found Rove. And so I was fortunate to raise $10 million to seed that business from Drive Capital. And so Drive Capital is one of the preeminent venture capital firms in the world. But the partners there, Chris and Mark, left Sequoia Capital to found Drive, and they put their office in Columbus, Ohio, where I grew up. And so they backed my company, and after a few years, we did some amazing things. Ultimately, last year, sold to Realpha, and we did a direct listing, but just having fun with life, following my curiosities and building.
When did you first get into the whole fintech? And maybe for the audience, because these words are used quite a bit, maybe define what a fintech is for the audience. And then like how long you've been doing this, because you're such a young guy. You've done so much in such a short period of time. Love to know kind of the roadmap that got you here.
Oh yeah, man. How far back should we go? So in venture capital, what you're doing is raising funds from what are called LPs, limited partners, and these are pension and retirement systems, banks, family offices, and then each fund has a 10-year life. For the first few years, you're making investments into early stage technology businesses. And this was a dream of mine to break into the venture capital industry. I didn't grow up with a pedigree background. My great grandfather owned machine shops in Ohio, manufacturing plants, a couple hundred employees, making parts, selling into GM and Delphi. And then my grandfather was disinherited. So I grew up with the story and the vision and that a little bit of a chip on my shoulder about that. And I always knew I would get back into the business of entrepreneurship. And that was my one driving, motivating factor and story for me throughout my life. And the first time I heard about venture capital, I put a calendar invite reminder for myself that pinged me once a year, because I said I will be a VC in 5 years. And almost to 5 years to that date, I was a VC. I should have made it 1 year. Sometimes you can take your 5-year plan and make it a 1-year plan is what I'm learning. But, I was young.
Man, I love that. See, this cat wrote down he's going to be a venture capitalist and he put the time period. And guess what happened? Bang. Ask and you shall receive. That like it's a secret power, man. Ask and you shall receive. Write it down on a piece of paper and then share it with somebody. Magically becomes true. It's the most, that's all you have to do, man. And then keep performing as if that's happening, right? I love that.
Hmm.
I really love that. What do you, uh, I mean, while we're on that topic, what is your new I am doing? I mean, like,
Yeah,
want to
I
share with
mean,
us? Like, what are you going to be doing in 2 years? What are you creating right now?
yeah, there's a number of things. So there's some fun projects I'm doing, just following my curiosities, and then there's some insights on the market that I'm aggressively pursuing. And so, if you think about venture, which was my dream, I've learned a lot, and there's a lot that can be improved on the model. So I see a world where you can take PE like risk with cash flowing businesses and lead digital transformation and integrate and develop proprietary AI technologies. And so I see this is why I'm really excited about cut my teeth in M&A. So right now I'm leading M&A and corporate development at Ground Floor, one of the leading lenders in the fix and flip um, RTL, residential transition loan market. So borrowers who buy a home need a few hundred thousand, they want to fix it up and then ultimately sell it or find renters. And so they're a real estate fintech platform. So anybody can go onto their website, invest as little as $10 and participate. And they've been doing it for 10 years. And so I see an opportunity there to buy companies. And then beyond that, I'm really excited about what's happening in our country now. Like we have an administration and people who want to support entrepreneurship. I think we're going to see a lot more opportunity for M&A coming up, and notably, and this kind of goes back to my roots. Um, for the first time in generations, we have tailwind to build things, to manufacture things in the US. So reshoring, nearshoring manufacturing is going to be a multi-trillion-dollar opportunity. And when you think about what's happening in the technology market today, you're seeing a lot of the smart money starting to go deeper into building in the world of atoms and not just bits, like building real things. You see this with robotics and AI. And so I think we can't compete with China on labor costs, but we can on technology and innovation. So that's going to be really exciting.
Yeah, you bring up a point about third world nation arbitrage of labor. That's really what you're talking about, right? Hey, China can put people to work for $2 a day. We can't do that. AI, robotics, and this new large language based learning models. I think that Trump has a tailwind for himself that Reagan didn't have, which is, hey, we needed, that whole era was like, okay, let's outsource everything so our margins can explode. We now have, I mean, I think the big losers from this are China, India, third world nations that have been arbitraging cheap labor, call center business, customer service, all that goes digital.
Right.
All
And
of it.
that means that the jobs that are going to grow here are higher paying technical jobs and all the service and support around that. Right.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah.
It's
No,
incredible.
and it has the ability to save many of these companies because if they get aggressive with handling their employment issue, which is the big friction point, I mean, growth, Wall Street's model has been growth at all costs forever. You and I know that is impossible for anyone lifting weights over 30 years to continue growing without putting something magical in your body. Like at some point, you max out. You cannot put more fuel in that body and you cannot grow more muscle naturally. Um, And I think the system is trying to overplay their hand. It's been milked, right? And you have like I'm looking at MicroStrategy as a Bitcoin surrogate. They added $30 billion of market cap to their company without any employees. Wow. That's impressive, man.
Right.
Okay. That is impressive. A company twice the size of that in 20th century legacy selling a commodity, L'Oreal, $185 billion market cap with 88,000 employees. Like there's so much that can go wrong with that business model over 10 years. I mean, they're selling a commodity that no one needs.
Mm-hmm.
And Bitcoin is being produced from electricity, which everyone needs. I don't get this. Like I look at these two constructs and go, wow, man, I basically have a company that has a monopoly position on Fort Knox. And we're saying it's only worth $100 billion. Dell's worth $180 billion. What do they have on their assets? An obligation to make a bunch of machinery and sell it to a marketplace one day in the future. Like that's not reserves of assets. It's just a bunch of contracts,
Right.
right? Like what's Salesforce worth?
Off the top, I don't know, but the market's changing. I think if you, the VCs who are chasing enterprise SaaS and things like that, and they're asking, oh, what's your LTV to CAC? And this, you get these contracts. That's not even taking a bunch of risk. And not enough risk, and it's going to be really challenging moving forward. You're going to see a shift from software as a service to service delivered by software. That's a big mind shift that we need to be prepared for as entrepreneurs.
Yeah. I think man, I wish I was your age because I think we're going through something that's so substantial. The gaps are so big and this is the piece in disruptive environments you're really well placed for because you can put money to work in new companies and new management teams that are savvy. I don't know if there are that many savvy IT guys. That's been a challenge, right? Hey, combining the commercial weaponization capability, for lack of a better word, with IT capability, it for me is the perfect solution, right? It's like put an IT guy that's really understands coding and software with a market-facing guy and a value guy that says, hey, look, this is bringing massive value to you. This is why you should invest in this tool or buy the tool. A lot of back to the fintech thing, a lot of the banking system has been built on kind of connecting to fintechs, right? All over the place, whether dealing with payments or processing or buy now, pay later models, all these different models. Where do you see that going in the digital world? Do you see that being amplified where there's a bunch of M&A and a bunch of new businesses trying to solve problems?
There's going to be some consolidation, but I think I'm really excited in fintech opportunities globally, driven by crypto native, like internet native financial services. And you see this multi-trillion-dollar capital market that has emerged in recent years, and we call that the crypto market, right? It has value, and when you have assets and currency, you have financial services that get wrapped around that. And so I think there's a big need, especially in countries with rapid inflation or political risk like Venezuela and others. So you're seeing crypto being adopted for real world use cases all around the world. And a lot of people in the US really don't understand why, because a lot of the challenges and costs in our financial system is abstracted away from the end consumer. Like there's all this fraud and all these costs that people just don't see because there are these companies that eat those costs and pass it on in other ways. But in other countries, you don't have access to a 30-year mortgage easily, right? You don't have access to a car lease easily. And you might get paid 1 week 100 of the currency in that local jurisdiction, and you can buy a meal, and 2 weeks later you can buy half a meal because of inflation. It's so crazy. And in those countries, Bitcoin's less volatile than their local currency, right? And so that's the future. That's where I'm most excited. That's what I'm most excited about when it comes to fintech.
And that's related to areas outside the U.S. or inside the U.S. or both?
Both, but I think outside of the U.S., you're going to see a lot more end user adoption in their day to day life. We're already seeing that. And inside of the U.S., you're going to see a lot of the development of the technology. Fortunately, we're going to have a less antagonistic, like a less, aggressive, or actually a more supportive, say it that way, regulatory framework to support the development here in the U.S. because we don't want the Wall Street of the future to be built in Southeast Asia or the Middle East. We want it to be built here in New York. And so I think you're going to see a lot of that. People are going to understand the value of Bitcoin. I was at dinner last night and a friend of mine, he was like, I don't get the value of Bitcoin. And I'm like, yes, you do. He's like, no, I don't. I said, all right, how many Bitcoin would it take to get you to stand up naked in the middle of this restaurant? 0.1? He's like, no. I was like, how about 10? He said, well, I guess I would. I was like, so you know the value of Bitcoin. Like, it's very simple, right? And so people here are starting to understand that this has staying power. But it's not just something to speculate on in a casino. I really encourage people to really dig into the first basis roots around what this is and why it's important. One of my favorite books that really opened my eyes a number of years ago was The Sovereign Individual. I know you've read that, Gary. Many people in the audience may have or may not have heard about it, but I highly recommend reading that book because it talks and predicts. It was written in 1997, I think. It predicts the emergence of this global internet financial market and why and where it's going.
Yeah, the way I get around the question on the value of Bitcoin is that no other instrument in the world offers me freedom. No other financial instrument offers me freedom. Now, I define freedom two ways. One, it ain't free. Just because it's got the free word in it doesn't mean it's free. It's been very cheap for Americans for the last 40 years. We almost lost it 15 days ago. We almost lost every freedom we possibly had. I think this would have been a really scary place to build businesses in or live in. Lena Khan's gone. She's an anarchist, fascist, like regulatory, beat up people, beat up innovation. I mean, I just think, you can't say that's not true. Gary Gensler has been problematic to the entire crypto industry. Might have put us back a couple of years. If the other governments weren't as screwed up as we are, we'd have most certainly lost our edge here by that delay.
Yeah. I mean, I felt it firsthand. Like I at
totally.
Rove led our process to getting SEC qualified. It took a year and hundreds of thousands of dollars on lawyers and many nights reading through and editing hundreds of pages of documents that nobody's ever going to read. And regulators are like, put a comma here. Like, all they're guaranteeing is that the worst financial securities get offered to non-accredited everyday individuals, and that country club raises stay at the country club. The best assets you can raise, from accredited high net worth individuals, people who make $250,000 a year or more, have $1 million of net worth outside of not including their home. And so you're just like, oh, the rich can invest in the best investments, and the average person can't. And when you have sunk costs like that, it's just a personal mission to get through that, to bring better opportunities like what Grant's doing, what Ground Floor is doing. It's really difficult, and so it's slowed down the entire industry. But I think we're going to see a lot more activity and a lot better access for everyday people.
I really like having conversations with you because it leads me to so many conversations. The point you made about your buddy last night, how old was he? The guy said, "I don't get."
He's like my age. I'm 36, but he's about that.
Yeah, I'm still amazed. I don't. No one's in this game, man. No one is here yet. Like it is amazing. No one's here yet, and no one's going to buy a 42% increase over 2 months. It's going to terrify them, which is like, oh wow, is everyone like my brother's like, I ain't buying that right now, dude. I'll wait, and I'm like, oh, thank you for telling me that. Your guy's going to wait because he ain't going to get the. Oh, I'd stand up for 10 Bitcoin. Um, where where are the family offices, all the people that you interact with, all this money, the money players, the art people, the real estate people, where do you think they are in their journey into Bitcoin, and where would you put their level of understanding on a scale from 1 to 100, bro? 100 being,
Very low, still like
100
10.
being like, sailor.
Mhm.
Yeah, where is it? Adoption
Like
and
10, like very low. And it's funny because people will get excited and hop on the bandwagon when the price is at its all-time high. So people are getting, I think, interested again. I'm getting calls all week like, man, are you going to tokenize real estate? Like, I'm like, I've been at this for 10 years or maybe 8. I remember co-leading a deal in a company that was focused on real estate on chain, and that was like 2017, and nobody got it at all. And then with Rogue, we did a project called Token Labs for Fun. We were one of the Solana Global Hackathon winners of Riptide, and we got a grant from the foundation for being the first. I haven't seen anybody do this. I think we did it before Rooftop. We just didn't publicize it. I didn't want people to. I was going through this thing with SEC to get qualified, so I didn't want to get slowed down further with people thinking we're a crypto company. But we did it.
yeah.
We financed real estate on chain and showed how that can be done legally. And at the time, I remember, what was this, 2022, right before everything kind of crashed that spring. I was in the Bahamas, I was in Lisbon, we were in the hacker houses, and the level of interest was at 110. Family offices are like, can I give you money now? And I'm like, no, we're about to launch this product. And people just want to hop on the bandwagon because it's super hot. And then a few months later, it's just cold. It's, the middle of winter. But now, because the price is
Ice
up, people
cold.
are happy again. They're like, "Oh, what's this? What's going on over here in crypto?" They want to know again. The thing that would keep people more consistent would be to just do your homework and really dive into the technology, the use case, the philosophy of it, and not be. I don't care what the price is. I just set up a dollar cost average strategy. I never look.
Yeah. I think, you've been studying this a long time, though. It's kind of hard to, I mean, I'm a big believer in, hey, get somebody in the bloody product first. First thing is just, like, I'll send you a Bitcoin. I won't send you a whole Bitcoin, but let me send you $500 worth of Bitcoin. And all you got to do, like, that's how I got my sister. But I didn't even talk to her about it. Hey, open your wallet and see if you can get into Coinbase. I would not tell her how to do it. I said, I sent you $500 of Bitcoin at, I think it was 28,000. And it took her like a month and a half to get into it. As soon as she got into it, she was then moved Altria, making a 4% yield. Stock doing this. She quit smoking 20 years ago. Her mom got her into this. And like, why don't we go to all these people and go, show me your stock portfolio, pick the worst performing asset and go, hey, we're going to allocate that to Bitcoin, ETF, micro, whatever. Then they get a little juice. They start looking at it, getting interested. Then you hand them a book like this. Then you hand them one of your books. Then you hand them another book. And they go down a rabbit hole and they start looking at everything going, Jesus, I have been living in a perpetual Ponzi machine for my entire life. And I want to
Mm-hmm.
get off of it, or I want to stay on it. And you get
Right.
to make that decision. At least you have another window to look at the future world through.
Hmm. Absolutely. I'd say another book like The Changing World Order by Ray Dalio is a good one to read.
Mm.
That Sovereign Individuals, another one. Um, just dig into it. See, I'm not much of a trader. I don't like to look at the price and predict it and make money. There are people with hedge funds with way more money and resources than me to try to predict prices and make money on trades. I like thinking about investments, and that means that you start with investing your time and reading and learning and tinkering, and that's so important. Anybody can take a class or watch a YouTube video and actually write a little bit of code. I'm not a software engineer, but I'll get into a class. Um, if I'm gonna be the CEO of a company and we're deciding, are we gonna build this on Salon or this or that, to even understand what your engineers are saying, you need to do your own homework. So I think the same about investing. Like people who are getting on this hype cycle because they're watching CNBC, I'm like, read a book, read one book, take one class, and you'll get it too. You'll understand, and you'll invest in the long term future in your future.
Yeah, I mean, minimally, if you don't get it, you should be so well equipped to debate anyone that you destroy anyone like me with this crazy view that Bitcoin is going to be a big player on the world stage. And there's enough smart people now, successful. Let's maybe call it successful, not smart. Maybe I'm not, maybe I'm the biggest Dumbo in the world. I don't really care. All I care about is, am I free and do I have wealth? My IQ is irrelevant. What's relevant is, was I able to pick the right decision at the right time and hold on to it, understand it. And if you have a bunch of smart people all saying something you don't understand, it might be worth like figuring out why. Why would a 60-year-old guy or a 37-year-old guy deploy all their time and energy into an industry when they could do something else, man? Like I literally could pick any industry I want, and I've chose this one.
Hmm.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, that's the most important thing to choose is like where you're going to live, who you're going to marry, and what industry you're going to be in. That's like that's your destiny. And so like there's two obvious ones right now, like big, changing tides like in our society, and that's the crypto market and that's AI. And
What
if
do
you're
you do?
not trying to learn how that's going to impact you or how to get in the game, I mean, then you're going to get left behind. That's what I'm always afraid of. I'm like, there is this growing divide, and these things are going to happen, and so I'm going to be on the other side of that shift always.
Yeah. How many events have you seen like this that allow for what I call a leapfrog event, where you're in a particular position on the socioeconomic ladder or in an industry or whatever, you're somewhere on that escalator of success or failure. What about this, whether it's AI or even crypto, that you think could do a leapfrog and allow a guy like me to supersize my opportunity?
The time is now. I mean, there's never been a greater time in human history to go from the bottom of the social economic ladder anywhere in the world to the top. Never been a time.
Never, man. I think
There,
that's
there
extremely well said, dude.
never been a time. I mean, people are always talking about the concentration of wealth, but what we need to be looking at is what percentage of millionaires are self-made in the U.S. It's 80%, right? There's never been a time where people have gone from the bottom to the top in one lifetime, in
Right.
one chapter of your lifetime, 10 years, less than 10 years, 5. That has never happened. There are no gatekeepers anymore to information. You can learn anything. There's no gatekeepers to capital markets. You can invest in anything, right? And so there's never been a time, and it's accelerating. Um, and what that also means is that we can't afford not to pay attention and to be engaged because there's no staying the same. There's no cruising.
I think, I think of the comment is brilliant, and I'll even add to it that the risk reward has never been higher,
Right.
and the amount of capital and time you needed to get up to speed has never been lower. And this particular industry, unlike AI or rockets or medicine, it's totally open. Like there is no, you don't have to have a PhD to anything. Like I'm not qualified to go in robotics, AI, or medicine. Everybody can come into this space, dude. All you got to do is 25 hours of work. I've never seen anything like it in my life. 22 books and one video, and you will know enough to go, I'm out. I'm not interested. Not one human being has ever walked away from this after 25 hours with me. Not
Right.
one, dude. And they all deploy money. Now, that same 25 hours spent on spaces, listening to a bunch of crypto bros, not one of them have converted because the noise is so confusing. It's so amateurish. Most of this information, you don't know if it's a professional or somebody that's got $12 in Bitcoin. And they read the white paper and they understand the white paper, but they understand nothing about how the world works, how adoption occurs, or how wholesale plays a role in getting into retail.
Oh, now you're on a whole nother tangent. Actually, this is how we got
This is it, though.
introduced through fashion, right?
Yeah.
Why am I now doing a fashion event in Miami? Because I'm seeing that there's one half of this is the technical insight, right? But the other half is, as an entrepreneur, is building things that people want and desire, and packaging that in a way that people understand, and that's fashion. And I'm really inspired by that. I've been um, diving in on the intersection of culture and commerce. There's actually this really cool panel I saw a few years ago that kind of first planted the seed. It has Steve Stout on the panel with Ye and uh, uh, Ben Horowitz. And Ben Horowitz is like of Andreessen Horowitz, one of the most preeminent like venture firms in the world. And why would Ye be on a panel with him? And who is Steve Stout? But Steve Stout was a record exec who brokered some of the most iconic brand partnerships ever. Like, when you think about Adidas, this random company in Europe becoming a fashion icon and being adopted by all these rappers, who brought that together? And why was Steve Jobs on 50 Cent's PIMP music video set? Well, because 50 Cent is holding the first generation iPod. It's a tutorial.
Mm.
This is really interesting to me.
Yeah.
So then I'm just spending time in fashion now to understand that.
Yeah, it's most certainly going to be a different world, man. I don't know how the brands survive in this commodity world. I do think we're entering everything looks, tastes, feels like a commodity. I most certainly would prefer owning a vault of Bitcoin than a business like L'Oreal. Just to get back to fashion, I appreciate people are going to use makeup, but makeup is not going to create wealth, and makeup is not going to create freedom. And there's just nothing special about somebody that grabs powder from a manufacturing company and puts it in a machine and then puts a logo around it and spends very expensive advertising on TV. I mean,
Right.
we just saw Trump spend 3 cents versus $1 because he didn't use any TV. He used the internet and podcast hour. Look at what we're doing, man. Cost me $20 a month to meet you.
Right.
Cost
There's
me
no
20 bucks a
barrier.
month to have a conversation, and that other people can watch the conversation and go, oh, well, this is how business people meet each other. Yeah, this is exactly like you and I had never met. We didn't do any prepping. Like I'm literally showing people, hey man, this is how strangers meet, develop a relationship. Cooper's going to remember how many times I was inconsistent and consistent. How many times I showed up, didn't show up, was I late, did I deal with issues? And he's going to be like, hey, this cat, he's he shows up when he says I like him. He's making sense. My credibility with you goes up. Your credibility with me goes up. We start to think about each other and go, hey, let's do some business together. I didn't have to get on a plane in New York, man. This is
Right.
working really well. COVID, all those crazy people that forced us into our homes, dude, it's working now. Thank you so much for being stupid.
The,
You saved me so
this,
much
yeah,
money.
the
Seriously.
remote world, like that, everybody is set up to Zoom and have these conversations. Has leapfrogged humanity tremendously. Like the friction to collaboration and getting to know people has never been lower. It's crazy.
Never. And you know that there's two monster challenges to new businesses: capital and contacts.
Mhm.
And one, this industry, everyone will listen to you. There isn't a closed door in the shop, dude.
Mhm.
I mean, everyone wants to learn from the next guy. Now, you may not get the second meeting, but you most certainly will get a first meeting.
Yep.
Um, and that has never been true for me. I could never get to Visa CEO. I could never get to the guy that worked the Rex at Exxon. Like, no chance, dude. They're not gonna. They didn't care I was buying $300 million worth of gas from. They're like, yeah, he's a little guy. They want to meet with prime ministers, and these
Right.
people have
And
no clue what
meanwhile, in this market, if you care enough to invest the time to build something real, everybody will meet with you. I remember being in hacker houses in um, the Bahamas or in Ceylon, in Lisbon, with my CTO and our engineers sitting next to the engineers who are making, commits to the core repo at Solana and getting unblocked in real time, right? And in that moment, I'm like, hell, what you read in the news is late. What you read on Twitter is late, a little less late. If you're invited to the right Telegram channels, that's a little less late. But if you are building in real time with somebody, it's instant, right? And so people are doing that virtually and in person. Like you don't have to go to Lisbon to do that, but you can connect with people globally, especially with these open source systems. You can contribute and add value to a community, and people will collaborate and connect with you. There are no barriers to entry. The only thing stopping anybody today is their own mind.
Yeah. Yeah. I still see some people holding on to, oh, I don't want to be too collaborative. I'm like, or I've heard some of these famous people go, man, there's a lot of people getting online now. I'm having a hard time keeping up. I'm like, you got 3 million followers, dude. Like, what are you worried about? Well,
Mhm.
they're making a lot of traction. I'm like, I listen to about 12 people, dude. Like, what if this is no longer about finite? What if there isn't any competition? The old model was eat something before it eats you. What if Bitcoin, this whole ecosphere is so creative that it doesn't cost you to lose?
Right.
Like,
It's a
I,
win-win
dude,
kind of
I think
world.
people are having a very difficult time that Bitcoin is very different than other value. Other value has all these tricks to it, all these costs, all these, it's just, I don't think everyone's fully understanding this magic money that doesn't make, you don't have to have a loser,
Hmm.
right? You
And
don't,
and you literally can't, right? So if you think about Elon Musk, it's not even just the e-money economy. It's also the real economy. Like Tesla opens, they have an open source philosophy, right? And because of that, you see wider adoption of electric vehicles and the infrastructure needed to support not just their growth, but the industry growth. And so anybody with a old closed source mindset is gonna lose in today's world because when you have an open source mindset, you have so much more rapid adoption of whatever you're doing in collaboration.
yeah. So an example, correct me if I'm wrong, but for the audience, an example of what he's saying is that open source, I mean, Elon's a really bright guy because he removed all of the dark mojo that another firm could have created. He just said, here's the open source. You can use this if you want, but it requires you to be transparent, just like I am. The comparison to that would be, why is my Apple iPhone constantly changing power cards, man? And why does my Galaxy not have the same power card? That's planned obsolescence. They are trying to trap you into using a tool. It's so inconvenient to switch the cards and all that stuff. You're like, I ain't changing anything, right? It's trapping you. Once they have adopted you, they basically trap you from leaving. Migration of data, migration of your name. I mean, you change your picture on one of these websites and you get delisted for like a week. Like, dude, I just changed my picture. I didn't change my social security number, my tax ID, my EIN. Like, I'm still me. I just changed a small little image, and then I got to go through the verification process. Everybody that believes this is you got to, oh, you win, I lose. I think that's a really old strategy, and then you're not going to collaborate. And if you don't collaborate and you and I are collaborating, I'm going to
We're
get
gonna win.
more powerful, dude,
Mhm.
and make better decisions quicker because we're all collaborating. We're not, hey, let's all get on the same trade together. We don't have to like fight each other. It's been a very
Right.
competitive world up to now.
Mhm. It's an exciting time. I think you hear a lot of people who are scared. They're reading the news. There's a lot of fear. We should be excited. I read the news and I am pumped. There's
Have
no
you,
barrier to entry.
oh, totally. Like, so I don't want to take up a massive amount of your time, but what do you think of this election? What do you think it's going to do for business? As an investor and a business builder, do you see this as a new opportunity to build things without being constrained, or do you feel like it's going to be too loose and create too many people doing too many crazy things?
I think it's going to be great for America. If you think about the people who are engaged, like we've got Senator-elect Bernie Moreno from Ohio going to Congress as a senator. He's the first South American born. He was born in Colombia, but became a citizen here legally, and then um, you know went through. He was a legal citizen, grew up in South Florida, and then built businesses in Ohio, and really understands the power and opportunity for consumers and citizens that blockchain technology holds. Has done some work in Ohio on that, and so you have people like that who really get the technology and get business, who are also who care deeply about citizens, who are who you would be interacting with, as opposed to people who are just antagonistic. And what happens when you have people who are basically hate business and innovation and education in office is you get what's happening in Europe. About 15 years ago, the size of the European economy and the American economy was the same. And now the American economy is 50% bigger. And that's going to keep happening, right? So I'm really excited and optimistic about the future and our opportunity to build great things that help people.
Listen, I totally agree. I don't think I've ever seen a time where the last time I saw this was in the 80s with Reagan doing the dereg, and man, it was such a cool time to make money. A cool time to build businesses. If you built a business and it wasn't right, you could pivot. You weren't like locked in and messed up. You knew lawsuits, you knew what the rules were. The rules weren't always constantly changing. Um, I think
And
that
people weren't going beyond the rules, right? You see that talk with Ben and Mark, like Andreessen, talking about how the administration would just harass you to stop things. I've seen that. Like they would just there isn't even a rule. They're just going to harass you until you stop building. It's crazy.
look, and anybody that thinks you and I are being a little nasty toward the government, there are committee investigations that are proving both Gensler and Lena Khan have been uh, aggressively messing with winners and losers. I mean, aggressively. And that's uncool. Okay. That's a third world nation. And that blocks innovation at every level. It blocks innovation. It scares innovators. If you
And what
can't
we need
measure,
and what we need the government to do is do very simple things. Protect our property, protect our persons, like our most important form of
yeah,
property,
yeah.
and from theft or harm, right? So stop all the bad actors. But then when you go beyond that and you're just harassing people, it's crazy.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw the. We'll close up with this comment, but I don't know if you saw Loomis, Sailor, and it was a very large 2 days ago. Very large room of people in one of these social media sites. I think it was X, and one, she really admired the community for supporting the crypto world. Have you been surprised at how aggressive this government is about getting in front of the sovereign opportunity around Bitcoin and the amount of progress that I think is like about 10 years advanced? Like they have super. No one expected this to be happening in November, much less, hey, it's probably going to happen in 2025 or 2026 early. Would you ever predicted that? And do you think the price in this digital marketplace is actually responding properly to that?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't expect it to happen that quickly, but like I said before, I'm not a trader. I don't pay attention to the price, but the long term trajectory, this is where we're heading. You know, I'm reading the New World Order, Ray Dalio's book, Sovereign Individual, and if you look at the arc of history, I'm like shocked at how quickly it is. So as I make 5 year plans now, I'm making 1 year plans and moving more aggressively. So I think it's incredible. It's going to continue to move forward, and I'm excited about that. And you know the new money economy being built here in America, but then also the prospect of building manufacturing real products. You know, being more ambitious, going to the moon, going to Mars. Right? What's happening in El Segundo? What's happening with the Reindustrialized Conference that happened earlier this year in Detroit, showing that America can and will build great things again. And I'm so inspired by that.
Yeah, I am, because you can't digitize innovation and creative thought and moxie and hey, I can do it. I'm writing goals down. You can't. I mean, maybe a computer can do that, but we have. I think I have 15 years to just make a massive difference in any area that I want to. Like I can make a massive difference with my family. I can make a massive difference with you and I and our communities, my neighborhood. It's simply about how much muscle and responsibility do I want to stick into the world and take responsibility for helping shape it. I have never found a better opportunity in my whole life to be important and to do something impactful that's valuable to the world. And I'm going to get paid well for it, which is an
Yeah,
awesome thing to do, man. You know?
100%. Like on the personal side, that would be if the audience is like, how do I put that into action? Right? There's 2 books on that. There's Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill,
Beautiful
um,
book,
and then
man.
and then there's Be Your Future Self Now by Dr. Benjamin Hardy. I mean, you read those 2 books, and then you pointed at anything we talked about on this podcast, you're going to be massively successful. It's going to
And
be
then and
like
then
it will
find a
change
guy
your
like
life.
you. Find a guy like you or me to like mentor or join the platform, and then you start to exercise your muscles. You don't need a college education. All you need is ethics. That's all you
Right?
need. I know how to
Just be a
show up
good
on time,
person.
sir.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally, man. You need a coffee? I'll make you a coffee, okay? Oh, it's not in my role. Who cares, man? I'm part of the team.
Have a victor mindset, not a victim mindset.
Ooh, I
Like go
love
out
that,
there.
man.
And
Victor,
that is so important. I had a conversation this morning with a college student who found me on LinkedIn. He was persistent. You could tell he's doing great things where he's at the university. And sometimes I take those meetings. I do that, about once a month with just people who reach out. And Gary will tell you, many people are open. You're about, 10 no's away from meeting somebody who can give you some insight. And so you just got to have that mindset.
yeah, for me, that is the value. I've seen people that are highly transactional. You say you're not a day trader. I'm not a human trader either. Like I do
Right.
not deal with human beings. Like you'll remember me for the rest of my life. We may never ever do anything, but you'd be like, hey, that guy, I think that guy will do business and he's not into like gouging somebody's brains out. Why you want to do that, man?
Right.
It's just not necessary. And you get a horrible reputation. Okay. I mean, like your reputation is so difficult to keep clean. Um, the first thing when I came into this industry, everybody was like, "Hey, what can I do to help you?" I'm like, "Dude, keep me away from the bad guys." Because I don't know. How do
Yeah.
I know who they are, man? I don't
Hmm.
know. They're probably smarter than the good guys.
Hmm.
And you can get talked into some shit by some of these people, and then get, oh my god, I got a wrong deal. That you don't want to do. Anyway, man, I really am. The more I talk to you, the more I value your perspective and just the way you approach thinking. Where do people reach out to you if they want to?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter, so Cooper underscore NYC underscore. Just follow me on Twitter.
Yeah. Yeah, he's an awesome guy. He's got a different perspective than I do. I'm a little bit maybe more aggressive on moving money around and doing crazy things. But like that's the cool thing because I can call him sometime and go, "Hey, I have this idea, but it's a little edgy," and he'll walk me off the cliff. Right, Gary, just buy Bitcoin, man. Cooper, thank you very much, buddy. You have a great weekend, and hell, thanks. Have a great Thanksgiving too.
Thanks, you too. Have a happy Thanksgiving. I
Thank you,
appreciate
man.
it.
Thank you
Bye.
so much. Appreciate it.